I have lots of phobias, fear of heights, fear of traveling. I didn't get on an airplane for more than 20 years. And so fear has really played a big role in my life. It's been my work to allow it to be there, but not let it run the show.
One of the phrases that I've said is you can only be brave if you're first afraid. As you think about the title, did that come into mind for you, just this idea of being brave?
I was really angry, certainly at myself,
Sure.
because I was so busy comparing my small little life to other people doing these big things. And I finally kind of dug in my heels and I was like, you know what? I'm brave. It's brave that I got out of bed today.
Yeah.
It's brave that I, got my kids off to school and managed to eat a breakfast.
Have you ever felt so overwhelmed by your mental health concerns that it's hard to even contemplate getting help? Let's be honest. When you're really struggling, finding help and getting yourself to a therapy session can be really difficult. But that's where virtual therapy offerings like ours really make a difference. As a licensed clinical psychologist with 25 years of OCD treatment, I've worked with people to help them get their life back on track. I've also trained a clinical team to do the same here at NOCD. NOCD is an online platform offering specialized, accessible, and convenient OCD treatment. Our therapists take insurance and will work with you every step of the way to help you get your life back from obsessive-compulsive disorder. So head to nocd.com to book a call to start your treatment journey. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can stay up to date on our latest podcasts and webinars. Now, on to today's episode.
Hi, everyone, and welcome once again to the Get to Know OCD podcast. My name is Dr. Patrick McGrath. I'm the Chief Clinical Officer for NOCD. And today with me, Renee Zukin. Hi, Renee. How are you today?
Hi, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
You are an author, an educator, a coach, a passionate mental health advocate. There's a book coming out called Every Day I'm Brave, Cultivating Resilience to Gain Freedom from Fear. It's by Wonderwell Press. It's coming out on August 8th, 2025. It's a memoir. It's a manifesto. It's a call to live with courage. I'm excited to talk to you about it today and how to live with fear instead of having to make it go away.
Yeah, thank you. I'm real excited about getting this book in the hands of folks who, have been struggling with fear in one way or another, and to really, just like you said, come through the other side of not having to just make it disappear, because that's really challenging.
Yeah. So what inspired you to write this book? I mean, why? Everybody probably has a story to tell, but not everybody writes a book about it. So what led to you deciding I'm going to put this on paper and share it with everybody?
Yeah, I'm going to just bear all for the.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
For me, it really, well, I'm a writer by trade, so
Okay.
I love writing, I love storytelling, and I really have a deep sense of the learning that we do through story is really impactful. I mean, we've been telling stories since we could talk as humans, right? And so there's a piece of perspective that I believe readers and listeners of stories can learn from, whether they see themselves as a mirror or they see loved ones or just learning from somebody else's experience. So from that angle, this, the mode of sharing my story was kind of, the book was an obvious track to go on. But then, from a personal and purposeful motivation behind writing it is really in service to, not only the parts of me that still kind of struggle with the shame and guilt of having diagnoses like OCD and anxiety, but for other folks who are also feeling pretty alone in the process, whether they have an official diagnosis or not. Everybody struggles with something. There's challenges out there. And if my story can help at least one other person feel less alone or feel more hope, then I feel like, that's just really meaningful, and it's done its job.
Yeah. Kind of turning fear on the side and bearing all to let people know there's a way out of it in a way.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
What role did fears play in your life?
Oh, lots of fun, lots of fun different roles.
Small question, I understand. Just a tiny one. Maybe a
You
2-second answer to that or something. Yeah.
right. You've got your average everyday fears, fear of new things, the unknown, all sorts of things. But certainly in adulthood, fear has played a huge role in a lot of the larger choices I've made, where I live, how I work, what my family has, been impacted by different sorts of things. So, um, I can pinpoint some specific things that, I have lots of phobias, fear of heights, fear of traveling. I didn't get on an airplane for more than 20 years. Um, and then to like the everyday kind of underlying anxiety that many of us kind of struggle with, that sort of just keeps us small, really. And so fear has really played a big role in my life, and it's been my work to, you know, understand and cultivate tools to allow it to be there, but not let it run the show.
Have you ever tried to tell yourself, stop it? I don't know if you've seen that Bob Newhart skit, but,
Yeah.
but yeah, just, I
Sometimes
try it every time. It's never worked, but I keep trying it. I don't know why. Yeah, so.
it's a great clip.
Yeah.
It's a great clip. Yeah.
But isn't it in some way so true, right? Where people who don't understand fear will look at someone who is experiencing fear and just be like, knock it off, right?
Right.
And it's not that simple, is it?
No,
Mm-hmm.
no. And especially for a lot of us who feel it very physically. For me, it's not just I feel scared, right? It can be a full body sensation, my knees buckle, my stomach's in knots. Like, just to like turn that off is, seems really impossible.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah.
And in many ways, our body has all those responses because it does protect us, right? Fear is not a bad thing. And I
Right.
think that's probably a message in your book too, right? That it's not a terrible thing to be afraid, but it can go haywire as well.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, it serves a purpose. We have evolved to be on alert and to understand if we're in danger, which is great. And just like you said, sometimes it can go a little haywire, and is the fear response really matching what's actually occurring? And so that's always, part of the experience of learning how to discern whether or not that response is an accurate response.
And we have interesting phrases even in our vernacular, like trust your gut. But what if your gut wants to throw up right now? I don't know how much I want to trust that all the time. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Um, yeah, that is the phrase trust your gut has always been one that's like, well, but how? For exactly what you said. Like, it's in knots. I want to, this thing is going to make me sick. And so am I moving towards something I'm afraid of, or moving away from it? There's all sorts of, um, ways in which we can really tap into who we are authentically, and this trust yourself, trust your gut, listen to the still small voice. And it's like, well, I can't even hear it because it's so loud in my head. So cultivating, the ways to get more mindful and to, almost be with the knots in the belly to
Mm-mm.
allow them to unfurl, and only then can you maybe hear that still small voice.
Yeah. in addition to all those fun phobias that you described, there's some OCD in there too, I believe, correct?
There is.
Oh, geez. And we're on the Get to Know OCD podcast. What do you know?
Hey,
What a coincidence and
how about
fascinating.
that?
Yeah. What has that played a role in your life?
So it's been interesting. I was not diagnosed with OCD until my early 30s.
Okay.
I had, anxiety, a little, dose of depression here and there in my teens. And when I was in my 30s is when it really kind of it latched onto food. And I suddenly became afraid. Not suddenly, it was actually very slow and pervasive.
Mm.
Right? There was the thought that whatever I was about to eat was going to make me sick.
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I had to, all of a sudden I became like hyper vigilant about who was touching my food, where it'd been, yada, 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 and then there was a point at which I thought I was sick and like, this is why I wasn't hungry. And I talk about this a little bit in the book too, about going through the pathway of misdiagnosis. So I had a doctor who said, well, I think you're anorexic. And I was like, what? Like, that didn't make any sense, but yet I wasn't eating and I was purposefully not eating and went through a nutritionist and all that. And so when it was finally kind of uncovered, like, oh, this is OCD, here's why, and here are, because it's not like what you see in the media. You
Right.
see, movies, TV shows, oh, it's just people like things in order, or people wash their hands a lot, which is something that I do have, that I do also. But beyond that, like, I suddenly had this whole new awareness of how my brain was working, the thoughts that I was having, why I was doing things. And so suddenly everything I also look back on growing up made so much more sense in the perspective of OCD. So I certainly, it wasn't new, but but having that, label, while it doesn't define me and who I am, it really helped me understand what I was going through and why, and then of course aligning right treatment, right?
Yeah.
That was a big deal.
I think your story points out what happens to a lot of people with OCD in that they are misdiagnosed, misidentified, therefore don't get the right treatment and then stay stuck for a very long time.
Yeah.
And it's why we at NOCD do what we do to be sure that people are educated about OCD, what it is, how it manifests, so that people like you and our CEO, Stephen Smith, don't have to go through numerous therapeutic experiences that aren't addressing the actual problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant. So thankful for you and the space and all the folks that you work with to have this opportunity. Yeah. So it's been nearly 20 years now that I've known and have been able to get, different sorts of treatments and things that that work. And this understanding that it's not something that you could just cure or take. Like, I just had to really accept that this was an experience I'm probably going to have for the rest of my life in some way or another. Certainly, there's times in life where it's far more manageable than others, but that was a big deal. And that's where a lot of, my desire to really emphasize self-compassion, regardless of the challenge that folks are dealing with, because it releases the additional layers of the shame, the guilt that can really immobilize you. And so learning how to be with these types of diagnoses and challenges in a new and different way, to be with fear in a new and different way, has allowed me to continue to live my life, and build on it in a way that's a lot more connected and joyful, because it can be pretty isolating.
Oh, 100%, especially if it gets into some of the really taboo thoughts that OCD likes to go to. And you believe maybe you're going to harm people or molest them in some way, or just all of the areas that it will go to in order to get you to do a compulsion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You talk also about procrastination, avoidance, a lot of the use of safety behaviors. I'm wondering, what, if you could share with everyone, what was it like to pass on or give up on the use of all the safety behaviors that you've been holding on to, that in your mind were like, yeah, these are really helpful and I need to do these things and keep doing them, when the reality is they're the things that keep you stuck more than anything
Yeah.
else?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is a great question. And I will be, very forthright in letting you know that I was very resistant to the work. And at times, my rebellious self likes to, be in charge and say, well, yeah, but it's kept you safe until now. Why are you going to give this
Exactly.
up?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Don't be dumb. Keep doing this. Yeah. This is
Right.
working very, very well for you. I don't understand why you would let this go. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's, doing that work to release safety behaviors was definitely slow. And, some I refuse to let go of. So that, that can be my future. Maybe that's the next book, right?
Yeah. There we go. 10% royalty on that, just because I queued that up just for you.
There
'Cause,
you
yeah,
go.
that's how. But it's such an important topic, right? Because, we're a superstitious society. In fact, I have a new product coming out next week called Block of Wood. You just carry it around in your pocket, and when you need it, you take it out and you knock on it 3 times, and then you've knocked on wood, and nothing bad will ever happen to you because you've knocked on wood. So, $19.99 will be the
Really?
release. Yeah.
I'll take 3. Thanks.
There we go. Maybe your next book could have a wooden cover, and then people could just knock on the book,
There
and
you
then
go.
would
There's
be okay.
cardboard.
Yeah. It's close. It's made out of wood, right? Yeah, so, but isn't it interesting? We, as a society, there are people who, well, I know it doesn't really do anything, but it doesn't hurt to do it either. So why not just do it? And we hold on to these behaviors, and they really do have a huge interference in our life after a while.
Yeah, yeah. Well, even with the hand washing, right? Like, it's normal for people to wash their hands before they eat.
Sure.
It's generally looked at as a good practice. Maybe people don't do it all the time. In fact, I know lots of people who don't. And
We
but
know
it's
who you
not
are,
like
by the way. We're watching you. Yeah.
yeah, that's a different conversation.
Yeah.
But like, it's, in general, and especially now we're 5 years from, global pandemic where everybody was washing their hands
Yeah.
quite frequently for the most part. And so there's this line of like, okay, well, this is normal, right? This is acceptable. And yet, if I'm going to go prepare a meal, I have to make sure I wash my hands before I touch any new thing.
Yeah.
And so, like, there's times where, I'll get caught in the loop of, oh, it's not clean enough, right? That one little thought, are you sure? Are you sure?
Never
Right?
enough, right? Never
Never
enough.
enough. Never
Yeah.
enough.
Never
And
enough.
so, on a small scale, it can be annoying. And I have dry hands. I need to use lotion, right? That's and then on a much larger scale, it's made me 5 or 10 minutes late to a business meeting. It's, because I'm stuck, or, or I can't leave my house because wherever we're going to do the thing, there are no facilities, or, and hand sanitizer isn't good enough, or, whatever. So it's to the extent at which what is, like you said, either a superstition or kind of a normal practice or things that are looked upon as okay, to the extent it gets in the way of all, the other pieces of your life, is where that awareness is really crucial.
Right. Yeah. And you can never be aware enough.
Right.
Right. You can never know enough. You can never have enough caution. Yeah. What do you think in all of that you were trying to not experience? What was your procrastination and your avoidance, saving you from, shall we say?
Right. I mean, ultimately, it's this sense of safety. Um, fearing being sick, the experience of discomfort. I mean, it's the ability to be in the discomfort, and then from there, ultimately, right, this fear of death,
Mm-hmm.
fear of being separated from loved ones, um, and doing whatever I could to make everything and everybody okay.
Yeah.
Which, of course, we have no control over.
Yeah. I don't even know if all my family's alive right now. Maybe. Let's pause this. I'm just going to make a few calls and just check in on some people, right? I mean, but there are
Yeah.
people who would do that, right? If that thought came in, I better check just to make sure, or
Yeah.
else I
Yeah.
can't live with the doubt, the uncertainty. And that's the whole goal of OCD treatment, of course, is to help people just accept that the world is one of doubt and one of uncertainty. We have absolutely no guarantees. What was it like to accept that as part of treatment?
One of my favorite words is surrender.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because that's in the acceptance of it. Like, I have to surrender to the discomfort. I have to surrender to the unknowing. I have to believe that whatever happens, I was going to say but that can get down a rabbit hole, right? Is, to just really release control and trust.
Mm-hmm.
And trust that things are going to be okay, and trust that if they're not okay, that we're going to figure it out.
That's the road we're all on, right?
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah. OCD says you can improve on that, though. Yeah. You could do a lot more than just trust that it's going to be. You could make it okay, right? And why not do these 78 compulsions just to assure yourself
Just
that
to
everything will
make
be fine?
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did you do exposure and response prevention therapy as part of your experience then?
I did, yes. I did it on a variety of different things. Coming out of pandemic, I really had a lot of trouble leaving my bubble, for all sorts of reasons.
That's book 2 title, Trouble in the Bubble. I think. There you go. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. There you go. Mm-hmm.
And so I had to do, exposure response protocols and therapies, even to just leave my house, go to the store, drive my car, and then once I was able to kind of live my life, we dug in even more to different kind of foods and things. Touching the kitchen cabinet. Like, I would wash my hands, touch the kitchen cabinet, and then take the bite of food, right? So so there was that first barrier between washing my hands and touching the food. And that was, it's hard. It's hard work.
Yeah. I know. I see it every day. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's hard work.
but it's worth it because after time, after some amount of time in doing it, the one of the things I absolutely love is when I realize that I didn't do the compulsive behavior or the safety behavior. I didn't do it. And I realize it after the fact. And I'm like, oh, I didn't do it. I didn't even think about it. Like, it's almost like this house is clear now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and I wouldn't have gotten to that point without ERP.
Yeah.
It just, yeah.
I don't know of anything we learn to do without gradually exposing ourselves to something and learning that we can handle it. If you've ridden a bicycle, you've maybe started on a big wheel, or if you were cool, you had a green machine. And if you're too young to know what that is, look up it was really awesome, but only the really cool kids had one of those. And then you had the tricycle, then you had the bike with training wheels, and then a parent held you, and then they pushed off and you slammed your face in the concrete because we didn't think about a nice sloping grassy hill back when we were young. We were just like, no, let's just go right in the street and without a helmet, just fall flat on our face. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then you,
exist? Yeah.
yeah, but then you got up and you did it again. And, so I contend that that's what therapy is like, because that's what life is like, is a
100%.
system of gradually doing more and more difficult things and learning that you can handle that experience.
Yeah. Well, and even from an educational perspective, I mean, scaffolding learning, it's the same principle, the same idea. Like first you see it and then, give it a go. And then with support and gradually, you become a master. Yeah. So, I love that because it's not just for OCD. It certainly works. Like that's what's working really well, but
It's life, right?
that's life. Yeah.
Were there points of your life where you were trying to figure out where all this came from and what was all the roots of it and everything? Yeah. How did that go? Yeah.
Yeah, I have the chapter 4 of the book is called History Lessons.
Mm-hmm.
And
I like that.
Yeah, that was definitely one of the things where and maybe this, was part of the OCD way of thinking, right? But I really wanted to know why. Where did this come from? Why did I do this? And so I delved back into, some pieces of relationship history, sexual history, but also genetics, and looking at the way in which my own family members struggle with different, diagnosed or not, anxieties, phobias, OCD, and the lineage. And I've always been very curious about why we become how we become and what we can do, if we're not satisfied, or if we don't, what can we do differently? So neuroscience is, I like to geek out on that.
Mm-hmm.
But going back in time was, it allowed me to look at the experience from a new lens and see it from a much higher perspective than I could have previously. So it was really helpful, but to a point, because I also couldn't get stuck there in,
Yeah.
Oh, well, this was why. So no wonder the end, I'm just this way, right? I was not willing to go there.
Awesome. I'm going to go a little rogue here. I see your book is behind you. I'm wondering, do you have a favorite maybe passage that you would like to read to us and share and just discuss a little bit? I think that would be interesting.
That is an interesting question.
Thank you.
You're prompting me. Well, one of the things I do want to point out is at the end of every chapter, I do offer some reflection journal prompts for readers to kind of go on their own journey. Yes, in service to the greater good. And also because for me, journaling was really has been a really helpful tool.
Sure. Yeah.
In in self-discovery and getting clear, because it allows you to kind of get on the other side of whatever is kind of rolling around in the brain. But I think, let's see if I can find it. Speaking of exposure response therapy, there's a point at which I am first working on bridges, walking bridges.
Okay. Yes. There's some rivers in Iowa to go over, I believe.
There
too,
are.
Yeah.
Well, and even the second floor of the mall was like too much for me to handle.
Yeah. Okay.
And there were the therapist I was seeing at the time worked in the hospital. And to get from the parking ramp to the hospital, you took the floor to walk away. Yep. And so I can read a little piece of that. So this is a chapter called Embracing the Tiger, which you can see, of course, is at the top there. I started walking across the second-story bridge that connects the parking ramp to the hospital, one that I had managed to walk solo at least 3 times by now. It was short, usually full of people, and pretty wide, though surrounded by glass windows, so I could see the street beneath me. About 10 steps in, I got stuck. My legs felt like lead. The floor beneath me began to disappear, and I faltered. I couldn't continue the 15 or so steps across the main hall of the hospital. Ahead of me, 3 men were working on some electrical wires in the ceilings, and other people were walking behind me and toward me. I became acutely aware of the other people on the bridge. I worried that they would think I was rude or crazy standing there in the middle of this thoroughfare. So I took out my phone and held it to my ear, pretending like I was standing there for a reason. I wanted to call my doctor, whose office was just a few feet away, and tell him to come rescue me because I was so scared of turning around and failing, but too terrified to take another step forward. I didn't want to quit. I didn't want to turn around and go back and feel like I'd lost all that I'd been working toward. But as time passed, the anxiety intensified, vertigo set in more heavily, and I could no longer hold back my tears. To top it off, I was now late for my appointment. Defeated, I turned back around to the parking ramp, hurrying down around the cars to the ground level sidewalk, and headed over to the main entrance of the hospital and gathered myself back together as I hurried down the hall, into the elevator, and out on the second floor in front of Dr. Temple's office on the other side of the bridge. Well, that was a failure, I scoffed, feeling embarrassed and angry at myself. You made it here, didn't you? Dr. Temple met me with more compassion than I'd given myself. Yes, but I couldn't do it. I got stuck, avoided the bridge, and then was totally late for the appointment, I said with frustration. Those are all true, he replied. And what would you like to do differently next time? So you can see it goes on, but that moment, right, in the chapter, we start, for me, the hardest thing was I had done this before. Why can't I do it again now? And I think that's a really important point in the experience of exposure therapy, is that it's not like one and done, you get there and you're all good.
Correct.
That there are these peaks and valleys. And of course, the chapter goes on and you'll see some more wins. But that was really potent for me, to be in a space where I could do it and then I couldn't do it and then I could do it again, and understanding that there are these peaks and valleys of this work, and that I'm not starting from scratch, even if I move backwards.
Yeah, improvement is not linear, right? It's not today I'm going to be this much better than yesterday and continue that. So some days I do well, and then tomorrow I might be, and then the next day I might be back up here again.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's a good learning. And I also had to, I chuckled in my head a little bit when you said that, because someone is going to hear that and go, wait a minute. You wouldn't walk across a bridge, but you'd get on an elevator? Are you crazy? Elevators are so date. Well, I would do the bridge any day before the elevator would, right? And that just really talks to you about the subjective nature of the fear in these types of things, right? And just how much, how much each person has their fear as well too.
Yeah.
When you're in those down periods though, like there, how do you motivate yourself to move forward? What pushes you to keep moving?
The benefits outweigh the risks, right?
Okay.
So it's hard, and I don't even like the word motivation, because sometimes like nothing, it feels like nothing will work.
Sure. Okay.
And what I know is true for me and has been true is that I can't do it alone. When I'm in that, in the struggle, whether it's, I hear Dr. Temple's voice. Well, people can be safety behaviors. But the knowledge, whether in the moment, I have somebody with me or not, knowing that I can call a therapist, I can call a friend, I can let somebody else witness, and I don't have to hide it, helps me take the next step forward. And again, this I can try again later.
Sure.
That this isn't the end all be all.
So I take it you're a proponent for some therapy then.
I am, yes. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, we don't have to be the expert in everything, do we?
No. It's impossible.
But so many people torture themselves for not being it. Like, yes. I always found it interesting that it's okay to not be in control of my physical body, right? And I'm not going to necessarily punish myself for that, but I am going to punish myself for not being in control of my entire mental aspect of myself. And I should just buck up and, walk it off and get it done and just not have any fears or anxieties or anything whatsoever. And it's unfortunate that we see things that way. We don't, make fun of people for diabetes like we might for OCD.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's true.
And how do you deal with, this is always a pet peeve of mine, and I'm wondering how you deal with it, that once you tell people you have OCD, you inevitably hear, oh, I have a little of that too.
Yes. Oh, yes. I like my spreadsheets, and my closet is color coded too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. How do you take an opportunity to educate people in that situation?
Well, I'm always, I love to validate others' experiences. So
sure.
That's the first road. And, I think it's important to note how internal the experience of OCD is. And so a lot of the things that you'll see externally in media, in different places and ways that people talk about OCD, I think there's an opportunity for teaching. So sometimes I might, and sometimes I'll just let it go. But, I think one of the things too that this book aims to do is give folks a glimpse into the inner world of OCD in a way that highlights the real challenge and the difference between a desire and a quirk, or having things in their place, or just liking, things clean. I mean, great. That's an aesthetic. Clean lines. Yeah. Love it. And, one thing that I may say to somebody like, oh, well, if your things aren't lined up, how much anxiety does that cause you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
that's the key difference.
OCD doesn't just rely on anxiety. I'm glad you said anxiety, and obviously you feel that, but I'm wondering if there was also pulls on other emotions like shame or guilt or disgust also. Yeah. Okay.
Oh,
I guess so. Yes. Check. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Because there's the sense of like, um, uh, for example, I have a lot of shame about the amount of paper towels that I use, and I feel bad for the trees and the environment.
Yes. There was a meeting last week about that, actually. The trees were very disappointed in you.
Oh, I love it. Yes. And right,
And yeah.
recognizing, um, but what the one of the things, uh, a little deeper on the shame besides the paper towels, right,
Mm-hmm.
is OCD. Part of the experience is these intrusive thoughts, right?
Right. Right.
They're
Yeah.
visual, they're and you think, oh my God, did I just think that? What a
Yeah.
horrible person am I?
Of course.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of the things I remembered looking back was, a night I was probably, I don't know, 11 or 12 years old, and I'm, you know, parents are out and my brothers are downstairs, babysitting, and I'm in my mom's closet, like trying on clothes and putting the shoes on, playing dress up, feeling great. And then as I'm like fiddling through, I have this thought about her dying, my
Mm.
mom dying. And all of a sudden I was like, and the thought was like, well, if she's gone, you get all these clothes. And I was horrified.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great way
Oh,
to get
yes.
clothes and furniture. That's for
Right,
sure. Yeah.
right. The
Yeah.
last thing I would want or care about
Right.
are these clothes,
Of course. Of course.
you know? And so I immediately like put everything away. I wanted to make sure that, nobody saw that I was in there, and that, shoes in the boxes, everything back in neat order. I'm just watching TV. I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
And I felt guilty, like
Of course.
so guilty for having the thought. And so that was one of the things that I understood so much differently about, okay, I have to be a good girl, right? And and I have to be somebody who makes good decisions. I have to be, right? So it's even pervasive in these other ways that, of course, for the most part, I think in general people want to be a good person. But like, the 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 pieces that tie into that. But for sure, the guilt, the shame, um, and to tell other people that this is the way your brain is working.
Yeah.
But thankfully, I know that that's not who I am.
Right.
And that's made all the difference in the world.
What was it like to discover that you can think something but not be that thing?
Yeah. That was a process.
Mm-hmm.
And I really, I thank Dr. Temple for that, more than a decade ago. He kept saying, thoughts are changeable, or thoughts are just thoughts. And I'd be like, and then you hear, I know a lot about, the principles of manifestation and, different spiritual
Oh.
practices, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
and
OCD loves a good manifestation. That's for
right,
sure. Yeah.
right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Thoughts become things. Oh shit.
Ah! Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I hope they don't, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a relief to hear that over and over. Like, thoughts are just thoughts, unless unless you're doing something with it, or allowing it to rule the roost. It eventually just goes away.
Yeah.
Or it'll come back, a few times. But that you don't have to do anything about it. And I think that was the key difference is I was finally like, oh, okay, that was a thought. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to give it any attention. I don't have to, yeah. And so it was a huge relief.
Yeah. It's
And
like the fundamental learning to me in OCD is that I can have something, but I don't have to buy into it. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
We talk about having a thought versus buying a thought. I can have it. I don't have to buy it.
Right. I love that.
I also like, so with the title of your book, the word brave, I've used a lot. One of the phrases that I've said is you can only be brave if you're first afraid.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because if you're not afraid, it's not really brave to do something, right? It's like, that was very brave of you. No,
Yeah.
no, I had no fear whatsoever. But if you're really like, it's overwhelming, it's fear inducing, and then you choose to face it anyway. That to me is bravery. And
Yes.
as you think about the title, did that come into mind for you? Just this idea of being brave, or how did the title come about?
Yeah. In the introduction, I tell the story of the first time those words kind of came to me, and it was a couple decades ago, and it was really in relation to I was so busy comparing myself to other people who were doing all these brave things in the world,
Mm-hmm.
doing all these things that they were traveling or they were um, making anything. Oh, go on this camping trip. Oh, going out to dinner. Like, people were just doing these things. Um, and I was really angry.
Yeah,
Um, Certainly at myself,
sure.
because I was so busy comparing my small little life to other people doing these big things. And I finally kind of dug in my heels and I was like, you know what? I'm brave. It's brave that I got out of bed today.
Yeah,
It's brave that I, got my kids off to school and managed to eat a breakfast.
sure.
And so it became like this mantra of like, you know, the little ways in which bravery shows up. And then the idea, of course, that bravery is the spectrum, right? Because people aren't afraid of the same things. And what's brave, what's a brave and courageous act one day, similar to that bridge example I just read. One day I can be this brave and another day I can be this brave. But that everyday concept of like, this doesn't just disappear. Fear doesn't go away. And so how can you look at life in this ongoing way and really think about bravery and courage as a practice
Yeah.
to create a better life for yourself.
And I wonder if I could throw a second part on that, which is you also have no guarantee in the future that anything's going to go well. And you have to accept that too.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yes. It's true.
And that's hard for people. I've had people argue with me, after treatment, then nothing should ever go wrong. It's like, well, no, that is not correct. We have no guarantees about how anything's going to go, even after treatment. But as you said, the goal is to accept that I have a thought or an image or urge without having to buy into it and do something about it. It can just be there, and that's all it has to be.
Yeah.
Awesome. So there's people who listen to this, hopefully try to get inspired to face their OCD, do some treatment. What words of advice do you have for them?
I want to say something about willingness, and recognizing and honoring the parts of us that are resistant to treatment. And the smallest step is just a shift in being willing to get curious about what might be on the other side. Not that you have to do anything yet, right? But that sense of curiosity of what could be different, and how can that change the trajectory for at least, the next step and the
Yeah.
next step. Because it's overwhelming to think about the whole thing. And if you're willing to get curious, it's a great first step.
I think of that Ted Lasso meme, if you've seen it, where he's playing darts and he talks about curiosity, right? And just how well that fits in what you just said there. Yeah, just be curious, right? And I like to say to people, you just live the life you want to live and not the life that OCD wants you to live.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Well, Renee, it's been a joy. This went by really fast, actually. Such a fun chat. Your book, Every Day I'm Brave, Cultivating Resilience to Gain Freedom from Fear, is coming out on August 8th, 2025 from Wonderwell. It is, again, part memoir, manifesto, and a call to action and courage. And thank you so much for sharing some of yourself and your message today. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. My pleasure. And thank you for having me.
And thank all of you for watching. If you like the Get to Know OCD podcast, you can subscribe to the NOCD YouTube channel or get the Get to Know OCD podcast wherever you get your favorite podcast from. And if you're looking for help for OCD, check us out at NOCD.com. That's NOCD.com, where we have therapists waiting in all 50 states, and we work in Canada and the UK and Australia as well. And here in the US, we take insurance. We'd be happy to work with you for OCD and related conditions like body-focused repetitive behaviors, hoarding. We do work with anxiety. We do work in mood areas, trauma. So come on over. We're happy to work with you. And thank you again for watching. Make it a good day. We'll see you later.